Purity Musel, and the World Menstrual Hygiene Day was marked this Friday, the 28th of May 2021, and this day is marked to just emphasize on the importance of menstrual hygiene. And of course, menstruation is something that occurs in most of the women for most years of their lives, and starting from the early teen age to middle and old age, and this is part or accepted as part of life. But while we talk about being part of life, then why do we always have conversations revolving around ending menstrual stigma and also menstrual taboos and all those things that make women and girls especially miss schools? Here in Kenya, the celebrations had calls that menstruation should be normalized and girls should be given an opportunity to go back to school by being provided by some of these menstrual hygienic products. To understand this topic, in studio tonight is Anyango, Director, POLYCOM, and Fantesia Khayesi, who is an adolescent girl, and we'll be talking about this, understanding menstruation and what women have to go through and whether we should be having these conversations at home. Welcome to the program. It's good to have you, Jane. It's good to have you, Fantesia. I love your name.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so Fantesia, let me actually begin with you. When we are almost celebrating the Menstrual Hygiene Day, because it's an annual event, as a Kenyan girl, what comes into your mind in terms of the struggles that you have to go through as a teen, and of course you're going through menstruation? What are some of the things that come into your mind and you say, as Fantesia, I wish and hoped this would change for us to enjoy this journey as women?
Okay, for me, as she said, I'm Fantesia from St. Juliet. For me, I think we need to provide girls with pads. That's the main issue in Kibra. Pads is the first main issue. You can find a girl menstruating, and she is shy to come and tell me because I am an ambassador for POLYCOM in school. So you can find a girl is so scared to come and tell me that she is menstruating. So like that thing, she thinks that I'm going to expose her. So she is so afraid that she will to come and consult me. So instead, she goes to one of her friends. So like friends, and tell them. Their friend can come and tell me, and then I go to the teacher. So we have a teacher called Teacher Chris. He mainly deals with POLYCOM. So he can give me the pad. I go give the girl and tell the girl that's part of life. For me, it's part of life, and it's need for a girl to show that she is really mature. She needs to get through that menstruation cycle.
And before you got the education that it's okay, and before you became an ambassador, did you experience some of these challenges that girls experience that I'm shying away from from telling even my parents? When you began the journey, were you so open with your parents or even your guardians, your family members? How was the experience for you?
For me, when I started menstruating, I was not so open with my mom. So instead of going to my mom or my sister, I went to a neighbor. I went to my neighbor, her name is Karen, and she helped me. She told me how to use a menstrual pad. So she took me to the toilet. She showed me how you put it on your panties, and then I wear it and I feel comfortable. So when my mom came from work, I was afraid of telling her what was going on. So my neighbor came and told my mom that, you know what, Fantesia has started to be a big girl. I say, oh, Fantesia, why didn't you tell me? I was like,
And you'll tell us what this is all about. But Jen, thank you for being here. I was speaking with her because I need to understand where the problem is. When we talk about menstrual hygiene, these conversations, do we start them? Should they start at home, or how do we ensure that we achieve this?
It should start as early as possible with the girls, because we know how sensitive our bodies are. So if they know early, even before they start their menstruation, that they're supposed to take good care of themselves during that time, then it's very, very important. So it's a conversation that should start with the girl as early as possible, so that she's psychologically prepared and she's not scared. And, you know, people, they make so many mistakes because they are scared. So it's good for them to know it as early as possible.
And this is now the parent who is supposed to take this responsibility, because most of us went through what she had to go through. Like, you've begun your menses and thinking about telling your mom it's a no.
Yeah, so mothers should learn to read that writing on the wall. You know, they should see that my girl is growing. They went through the same process, so they should start the conversation. And mothers should also know that, like, you know, the time to communicate with the girl and also to read their mood, so that the girl is able to feel as free as possible. Otherwise, when they wait until it comes and then you're starting the conversation and you don't know the things they've had out there, then it's a bit stigmatizing. It's a bit stressful for the girls. Yeah.
And why is menstrual hygiene maybe very important? Yeah, let's talk about the need to ensure that our girls are, you know, hygienic during this time, and what are the dangers of the opposite happening to a girl or going through.
Yeah, so what happens is that if a girl is not very clean during that time, then definitely she's going to smell. Yeah. And the stigma around that can just be something that they can never forget. So it's very good for a girl to know that, you know, during this time I have to make sure that I shower, I'm able to change my pads as early as possible so that I don't mess myself up. We've been having conversations this week, and what was coming out again is that girls are even shy to go to the toilet when they're having their menses. So yet when they're having a running stomach, then they'll run there as much as possible and nobody cares. So these are conversations that should start with the girls as early as possible, so that this stigma is not there. The mother should read. The mother should know that my girl is growing, and we should have this conversation, so that even before they have their menses, they know that this is something I should expect and I should not be worried.
Fantesia, why was it a big deal for you to tell your mom that, you know, what this is what I'm going through, and it was so easy for you to tell a neighbor? What was happening?
Like, I was afraid of my mom. I was saying that if I tell my mom, what will happen? So when I went to the house, I found my neighbor there. My neighbor was charging her phone. I found her there, and I said, you know what, I've started my menstruation. I didn't even bother to tell my sister. I only told the neighbor, because she was so close to me. Yeah, so I told her what was going on. As I said, she helped me, and then I found her telling my sister about my situation. I just went.
You felt bad. You felt betrayed. First, how did you know? Because you didn't want to talk about it with your mom, and definitely you had not had that conversation. Where did you learn that girls at some age have to go through this?
Before I started menstruating, my mom was also educating me. She could call me and tell me, Fantesia, sit here. And then she starts to explain to me. Even POLYCOM comes to school, and they call all girls, and they start to educate them, tell them that if you're starting menstruating, don't worry, this is part of life, this is normal. So for me, it wasn't that a big deal, but yeah.
Okay. So gender menstruation can be a big deal for girls, especially when they are starting. Maybe we can talk about some of the struggles they go through, because, you know, when you're starting the journey, there are a lot of questions, there are a lot of concerns you're raising, and some of them go unanswered. Maybe we can talk about what are some of these things that girls face when they are starting their menstruation, and what kind of help do they require at this particular time.
Yeah, I know the experience is different with different people, but what the challenges that the girls go through, especially if they are not told about it, is just the worry. You know, what do I do? Where do I go? Why should people know? And at some point, people also don't want to grow up. You know, like, hey, I mistake, I don't want it to come. Yeah. But now it's something that there's nothing you can do about. So that is the reason why at POLYCOM we work more with their bigger sisters, the younger women, so they are closer to them. at least they look at them and they're like, have you started your menses yet? They even ask the bigger girls whether they've started their menses yet. And now with that, they can relate. You know, they're able to talk about it. They're able to talk about everything. And they also come from the same background, you know, like the same environment. We have, in Kibera, most of the houses are very small. In our informal settlements, most houses are very, very small. So when they have their bigger sisters who went through the same process within the same environment, then they listen more, and the experiences are almost the same. That is why when we're doing our mentorship, we have something we call the I stories. The I stories is we collect stories from the bigger girls. And then when they are talking to the girls, when they have this assembly that they conduct with these younger girls, they're able to talk about their own personal stories. And with that, the girls are able to feel a little free.
And in most cases, menstruation is referred to as something unclean, embarrassing. Is it due to lack of, because that's not the case. It's part of our life, you know. So is it due to lack of awareness, or why is it so?
Purity, we are all products of menstruation. I don't know where this came from. I don't know when they started talking about women being unclean. And I think in Africa, we adapted it so much and have used it to really stigmatize the women. So the menstruation is a very simple biological process. And we should all learn. Making it too private makes it, just increases the stigma. We should all accept that menstruation is there for a girl to be complete. At some age, if you haven't started menstruating, then you are very, 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 very worried, you know? So for us to kill this stigma, then we must talk about it as openly as possible. Africans, let's accept that for a woman to be complete, a woman must menstruate. And for anybody to become pregnant, for a life to come into this world, menstruation must take place. So it can never be dirty. It's a beautiful biological process that must happen.
Okay, because this was the case. Fantesia, when was your first experience? Were you in school? Where were you? Did you get any stain? And did you feel embarrassed? Because most girls feel embarrassed because that's what has been made, probably what has been going on with other girls. So when you get your menses, you feel embarrassed and clean. So what happened? When did this happen?
I started my menses when I was at home.
Okay.
Yeah, we had already closed schools, so I was at home. That day, I remember when I walked up, I felt somehow weird. So I decided to go to the bathroom. When I went there, what I saw, my nurse dress was all bloody. So I was I didn't want to get out of the bathroom. So I just stayed there like, what should I do? And then I went to the house. Gladly, POLYCOM had already taught us how to wear a pad. So I went, I took a basin, I went and showered, I wore my pad, and then that's when I told my neighbor.
So what was going through your mind? You know, did you have so much knowledge? I know there was education and awareness going on there, but were you scared? What was going through your mind that now I've started this journey? You know,
I was scared, so scared. So I even said to myself, no friend is going to know about this. No friend is going to know about this. Even when POLYCOM came and asked, who has started menstruating? Oh, my hands were down. I haven't. So for me, it was like, I'm a big girl now.
And you were scared of it?
Yeah, I was scared of it, but now I'm okay.
You're fine.
I'm proud of myself.
Okay. And this is something that happens with every girl, that now you've started your menses and I'm a big girl, and you're actually so scared that so the responsibilities and I'm no longer, there are things that need to change, the things that you used to hear other people do or campaign against. So do we still need to be talking to our girls during this time, and maybe what are the dangers of leaving girls on their own when they start your menses? At this time, do girls need more care than they had before they had reached this level or stage of their life?
They do.
Yeah.
In fact, we've had girls complaining about different products, menstrual hygiene products. So it's very important to have these conversations with them, because if we don't have these conversations with them, then it means that even if they are suffering, they're not going to talk. So many people, when they have problems, especially the young girls, when they have problems around their private parts, they really talk. Because what are people going to say? People are going to think that they had sex. You know, people don't want to talk about it completely.
Yeah.
And that is why it's very important for us to have this conversation as openly as possible. Because if we don't have these conversations, then it means that the girl is going to suffer for the rest of her life. For how long are they going to suffer before they come out and talk about it? We have women still suffering from the things that they were exposed to during their adolescence. So it's very important to tell girls to come out and talk. It's very important to normalize this conversation. It's very important for girls to understand that once you become a big girl, then anytime you go to the hospital, then the doctor is going to ask you when you had your last menses. In fact, we've had girls worried and very unhappy about doctors asking them about when they had their last periods. They're like, now what does he want? In fact, some of them think it's sexual harassment. So it's very important for us to have all these conversations with the girls so that they understand that it's very, very normal. It's very healthy for anybody to ask you about that, because you're a big girl and you should be proud of your menses. It makes you complete.
Okay, let's talk about the hygiene, the menstrual hygiene. Maybe you can share with us a few tips on to just ensure that we achieve the menstrual hygiene, and of course we don't, because unhygienic habits also come a long way to even getting girls have these kind of infections that are associated with menstruation and unhygienic experience. So maybe you can give us a few tips on how girls can ensure they stay clean during this period.
Yeah, so first the girls must make sure that when they're changing or they're touching their pads, then their hands are very clean, And that is why personally I advocate for hand washing before and after you visit the toilet. Because when you're going to touch your pad, when you're going to touch your panty, then your hands should be as clean as possible. And then the pad also, they should make sure that the pad is well protected. And that is why many pad making companies make sure that it's well sealed, and it's only the owner who is going to open it up. And then the panty should also be clean and dry. Clean and dry. Even if they have as few panties as possible, then they must make sure that the panties are dry. Because if the panties are not dry, then they're going to have fungal infections. And these are the things that people don't want to talk about. And if they're having any infection, any infection, you know, girls always get the fungal infections. They can get it from the things that from the basins, just from anywhere, from surfaces and things like that. So they must make sure that they go for treatment. Because if they don't go for treatment and they have any infection down there and then they have the pad, then the infection is going to be to worsen, and then it becomes more complicated. So we must make sure that we are as clean as possible. And then also the toilets. We must make sure that the toilets are clean. At times it's beyond our disposal. It's like we are not able to control the cleanliness of the toilet. But when they go in there, they must make sure that as far as she's concerned, then she doesn't just touch surfaces. If she's going to change her pad, or if she's going to touch any of her private parts. And it's always very healthy for a girl to have a tissue paper. The tissue paper should always be there. And now that is why the wiping is there. Because if you have the tissue paper, and nowadays I'm so happy that we've all realized that the white tissue paper is what we need. So with the white tissue paper, they are even able to know that, you know, my menses are just about to begin. And with that, they're able now to have their pads and their stuff very clean. We also talk to girls about just trying as much as possible to know their dates, so that they don't use very sensitive colored panties around that time. Because at times cleaning these pants to be as clean as possible becomes a challenge. And when the panty is not very clean, when they can't wash them clean, then they start hiding them. And when they start hiding them, they don't air them in very hygienic surfaces or maybe lines. So those are some of the things that expose them to a lot of that makes them uncomfortable.
So let me get to you, back to you, Fantesia. When you were beginning this conversation, you said girls lack pads, you know. So let's talk about the challenges that you've been able to see among girls, because you said you're an ambassador for other girls at the slums. Maybe you can tell us what are some of the major struggles for girls during this time, because the experience itself is not even pleasant, you know. I'm
going to answer that with a story. So one day I was at class with my friend. I saw my friend was uncomfortable. When I move closer to her, she moves. When I move closer to her, she moves. And I started telling her, what's wrong, what's wrong? She started crying. And I took her, I went with her to the toilet. So I asked her, now we are the two of us only, so what's going on? She told me that I have started my menses now. I don't have a pad. I'm afraid of talking to you. My cramps, I have severe cramps. So I went to the teacher. I took pad. I nilimpelekea. Then she wore it. And then I told the teacher that she has cramps. The teacher told me that I can take her home. I took her home. Her mother gave her pills, and then I left her. I went back to school. So that cramps, she was very, 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 very. It was painful. If you could have seen her, she was very pale. So even the teacher asked me, Fantesia, go talk to your girl.
So the issue of pad is of major concern, and I don't know what are some of the efforts. It's such a touching, you know, story to hear that, especially when you're in school, you don't even have a pad. How do we ensure that? Okay, it's just my own opinion. Do we ensure that girls have pads, whether they're not on menses, they haven't started or not, to just ensure that, you know, when you begin, then you're not in dilemma, because it's really a bad place to be.
Purity, we are trying, and I know we have so many civil society organizations that are trying as well, but it's not enough. And it's interesting that our government have acknowledged that this is a need, and their girls should be able to access pads within the schools. But they're not able to provide for the girls, you know. So it's really sad that, you know, she's worried about pads, and now we have the issue of the cramps, which is really is a big problem, and it's very common with girls nowadays. And that is why these conversations must be there, because having a girl lying at home and saying, you know, I'm just sick, and I know maybe she cannot even carry herself to the hospital. The cramps, yes, it's killing her. She's not able to concentrate in school. So we must have these conversations, and we must make sure that we are having platforms where we are talking to the girls and listening to them as much as giving them the pads. I know so many organizations are coming up right now and are giving pads to the girls, but just giving pads is not enough. We need the panties. We need the conversations, and we need also to help them to be able to monitor. We used to give our girls diaries, and those diaries would be very, very personal, where they would even monitor the color of their discharge, so that if they see anything negative, then they would talk to their bigger sisters, who are the mentors, and then the girls can take them to the hospitals. We are in partnership with a few hospitals in Kibera. We have Ushirika Clinic. We also have the CFK Clinic, where we can take the girls anytime, and then the bigger sisters are there to comfort them, to tell them that it's okay. It's okay, so that even the parents, if the parent doesn't have time, you know, at times parents are also very complicated. We have had a girl who was she was really suffering. She had her very serious issues, and anytime she talked to the parent, it was like, you know, hiyo ni kukua msichana. Hiyo ni kukua msichana. Even me, I was like that. Don't make a big deal out of it, and you don't know what the kid is going through. You know, so the conversation around the menstruation, the conversation around the pads, and even the cramps, we can't just run away from them, and we are talking about girls' welfare. You know, when we are talking about girls' education, when we are talking about SDG 5, then we must factor in education around menses. Clean or general menstrual health must be a conversation. And our doctors should also take it very seriously. It should not just be about when did you receive your last menses. Can it go further to be like, how is it? so that our girls are feeling more cared for.
Let me just stay with you. Let's talk about the menstrual hygiene products that are there and the ones that are really available. Let's talk about the cost effectiveness of these products. They are not very cheap. They are expensive. And a common girl, especially, first they can't afford them because the girls don't work. So if they must be afforded, then it's the parents to buy. If you look at life in the slums or life in most rural settlements, is that the parents don't even think about that. And if you listen to the girls, they'll always tell you that, you know what, I blame my mom for what I'm going through, because they know the process. They know the reason why we need this, but at times they budget for Menda in the house, for the cockroach. You know, they buy Doom every month, but they don't buy for us sanitary towels. Yeah, so it's something that is really, it's very touchy. It's not affordable. We should get them for the girls, and we should have them in schools. Yeah. Okay. Maybe what are some of the products that you are aware of? You know, which ones have you used?
There are pads. Yeah. So pads, and then there are menstrual cups. But as girls of schools, we are not advised to use menstrual cups. So most of the organizations tells us to use pads. For now, we should have to use pads, and there are tampons. Yeah, but I don't think if they are safe for us to use it. Yeah.
Okay, maybe you can address that.
I like the way Purity is enjoying her conversation with the young girl. Yeah, she is empowered.
I am enjoying, because these are the real issues. You may assume that they are comfortable because different people are comfortable. Like, I might be comfortable with tampons, another woman is comfortable with the pads. Like, it's and then for girls, they have been told you have to use the pads. How about for those who are reactive to them, you know?
Oh, yes, and that is why we tell the girls that you know your body. You know yourself more than anybody else. So speak up. If you can't use them completely, then let's talk about an alternative. But we have pads that are very safe. Like us, we make our own pads, and we use everything that we are using is very, very safe. But we encourage the girls that once you sense anything, kindly come and tell us. We don't encourage the girls to use the tampons or the cups, and because first, our environments are not clean. So their hands are not that clean, so they can't be touching themselves like that. And then for them to also to be taken back, for them to be reused, they have to be cleaned. So in our normal latrine, you know, the pit toilets, especially in the slums, when do you wash your hands? When do you when do you sterilize them? When do you? It's just a little complicated. So we encourage the girls to use the pads, make sure they dispose them very, very well, and let them also monitor the color of whatever is coming out of their body.
And there was a report that had been released that a number of girls miss up to 13 classes in one term only because of, you know, they have to stay at home when they are on menses, and the major reason for that is lack of pads. You know, so what can be done to address this, to keep girls in school? I know some of the pain sometimes may be unbearable, you know, so how do we ensure that girls stay in school? By one, ensuring that they access the products that they need, and also like trying to help them with the pain for those whose pain is extreme.
So in schools, teachers, let's internalize this. Let's know that our kids are suffering. Let's talk to them very openly so that when they are suffering, then they are able to come out and talk. To the government, let's get pads for the children. And not just pads, even panties, because you can never use a pad without a panty. So let's not just go the pad way only. We need those very clean and dry panties for us to use our pads efficiently. So let's internalize this. Let's have these conversations with the girls. Let's tell the girls that, you know, you're not to blame if you're having cramps. It's your body. Just the way you can have your headache. If you're having headache, who is to blame? It just comes. You're not to blame. So let's tell the girls that it's very normal. Come out. That is the only time you can be helped. Let's all pick this as our issue. Adults, let's pick it as our issues. The doctors in hospitals, when they come in, when we are prescribing medicine for them, let us listen to what they have, the challenges that they're going through growing up, and help them.
Fantesia,
Yes.
do you agree? How do you think girls can be helped so that we don't have to have another experience like your friend who had to go home because they didn't have pads? You know, how do we help girls and ensure they stay in school?
So like Ma'am Jenna said, to ensure that every school has even one box of pad put it there, so that even if a girl has started menstruating in school, they can give the girl the pad to use it. So even pads, panties, like Ma'am Jenna said also, POLYCOM provides us with pads, panties, sometimes you're given soaps, face towels, so that you can be clean through your menstruation period. So pads and panties are the most important.
And as you continue, because you're still an adolescent, you're still young, maybe what are some of the fears that you have, you know, the struggles that you're going through, and maybe do you have any fears as a girl, a teen girl?
For me, like, I have one.
Yes.
I also, when I always menstruate, I have that thing telling me, what if you mess? What if you mess? So that thing is always disturbing me.
Yeah.
So even when I am menstruating, I can be normal, yes, but something can tell me, Fanti, go to the toilet, go to the toilet. So that's the main problem for me.
Especially when you're in a school and it's a mixed school.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Passing short as we wind up.
Yeah, Purity. I wish you told Fantesia that this is normal with every woman.
Yeah.
That everyone is always worried.
Like you always
during those days, everyone is alert, not one person.
So you are a woman. So.
It's part of our lives. Yeah. So what I can say is that let's all unite to make sure that our girls are safe and are menstruating in a dignified manner. As POLYCOM, we are able to give detergents to clean the toilets, just making sure that the toilets are clean. We are able to give the girls the pads, and we are able to give the girls the panties, and we have the talks that go along with them. But I know we don't even reach 1% of girls in this country. So what is somebody else doing? Let's all unite and just make sure that as we talk about them excelling in their education and lives, then we are giving them the ability to be able to excel and just to be happy.
Well said. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Fantesia, I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much, Jen, for helping us with this discussion tonight. We do appreciate your presence here.
You're welcome.
Okay, and that's all the time we had for the show tonight. Thank you so much for keeping us company. I'm Purity Museo. Do have yourself a good night and enjoy the rest of our programming. God bless.